I was crouched behind my pickup on a chilly Wednesday morning when I found the GPS tracker tucked into the wheel well. It hit me like a punch I didn't see coming. My first thought wasn't that someone was out to get me. It was just pure confusion. Why would anybody care enough to track a guy like me, a structural engineer who spends his days crunching numbers for bridge supports and his nights fussing over my collection of bonsai trees? The little black gadget sat heavy in my hand, its tiny red light blinking like a warning. Somebody had been tailing me, watching every turn I made through the quiet streets of Willow Creek, just outside Richmond, Virginia. My brain, wired for problem solving, started ticking through the possibilities. Could it be some rival company sniffing around for trade secrets? A random creep? A mix-up with someone else's truck? The idea that it could be my wife, Jessica, didn't even cross my mind. Not then. That night, she breezed into our sleek, open-plan kitchen, flashing the smile that fueled her 300,000 followers on her lifestyle blog, Rise and Thrive with Jess. Her posts about morning yoga and real love were a hit. "Hey, hun, how's your day been?" she asked, brushing a kiss on my cheek with that polished ease of hers. I held up the tracker. "Found this stuck to my truck." Her smile wavered, just for a split second, before she dialed up a look of worry. "That's creepy as hell. Should we call the cops?" "Maybe," I said, watching her closely. After 18 years together, I knew what she tells. The way her right eyebrow twitched when she fudged the truth about her credit card bill, or how her voice got a little too bright when she was covering something big. Both are happening now. "It's probably nothing," she said quickly, already heading for the wine cooler. "You know how cutthroat your industry can get." I nodded, slipping the tracker into my pocket. My firm, Carter Engineering, had snagged some big projects lately. New shopping centers, a couple of high-rise contracts. Industrial espionage wasn't out of the question, though it felt like overkill for a small outfit in Richmond. "Yeah, you're probably right," I said, but my gut wasn't buying it. Later, while Jessica was in her home office tweaking her latest blog post, I sat in my den, studying the tracker under a magnifying lens. This thing was no cheap toy, military-grade, high-end, the kind of gear that costs serious cash. This wasn't some prank or impulse buy. My phone pinged with a text from my coworker, Tyler Brooks, a 32-year-old hotshot I'd been mentoring at the firm. "Got held up, might miss tomorrow's client pitch. Can you cover the Dawson project alone?" I frowned. Tyler had been flaking lately, skipping meetings, taking long lunches, mumbling about new contacts. Still, his smooth talk and drive had brought in some major clients, and I'd been prepping him to take the reins someday. "No sweat." "Are you good?" I texted back. "Just tied up with personal stuff." "Catch you tomorrow," he replied. I set the phone down and fired up my laptop. If someone was tracking me, I wasn't about to sit around wondering who. It took me 20 minutes to set up monitoring software, a trick I'd picked up back in college when I was more paranoid about my dorm room than my marriage. By midnight, I had alerts rigged for anything weird around my house, office, or usual routes through Richmond. 2 days later, those alerts paid off. Jessica had left her purse in my truck after we'd grabbed dinner at a fancy spot in downtown Alexandria. I was digging through it to return it when my fingers grazed a receipt shoved in a side pocket. "Harbor View Inn, room 208, dated yesterday." My hands shook as I stared at it. Jessica had told me she was at a wellness retreat all day, posting about her unplugged day before going radio silent for 12 hours. My engineer's brain started connecting dots I didn't want to see. The tracker, her recent late-night phone calls she'd taken the other room, Tyler's sudden unreliability. It was adding up to something ugly. That weekend, while Jessica was off visiting her sister in Seattle, I installed a discreet security system around the house. 6 high-res cameras with motion sensors, phone alerts, and cloud storage. All legal, all on my property. "Just being careful after that tracker thing," I told her when she spotted the tiny lens by the garage. She barely looked up from her phone. "Smart move," she said, already scrolling. The system went live Monday morning. I was at the office going over blueprints when the first alert hit. Motion at the front door. I pulled up the live feed and saw Jessica leaving the house at 10:52 a.m., wearing a dress I'd never seen before. The second alert came at 11:30 a.m., her car pulling back into the driveway. She wasn't alone. Tyler Brooks climbed out of the passenger seat, his hand grazing her lower back as they headed inside. It was a small move, but it screamed familiarity, like they'd done this dance plenty of times before. My coffee mug cracked in my hand, ceramic biting into my palm. For the next 3 hours, I watched my world fall apart through grainy footage. Jessica and Tyler moved through my house like they owned it, sharing laughs and pouring wine from a bottle I'd saved for our anniversary. They kissed in my kitchen with a fire I hadn't felt from her in years. At 2:20 p.m., they slipped into our bedroom. I shut my laptop and stumbled to the office bathroom, staring at the guy in the mirror. 44, gray creeping into my beard, eyes etched with years of late nights and trust. I waited for the anger to hit, but instead, a cold, sharp calm settled in, like a blueprint snapping into focus. I went back to my desk and opened a spreadsheet. Column A, proof. Column B, timeline. Column C, legal steps. Column D, my next moves. By 5 p.m., I had a plan. "Good day, hon," Jessica asked that night, pecking my cheek with that same rehearsed warmth. "Real productive," I said, my voice steady. I'd booked an appointment with Dr. Leonard Tate, a therapist my dad swore by before he passed from a stroke years ago. His office sat high in a Richmond tower, with windows framing the James River. I needed someone to help me think straight, because the road ahead was about to get rough. I sat in Dr. Leonard Tate's office, feeling the weight of his words settle over me like a cold fog. "Betrayal's a beast all its own," he said, easing back into his fancy leather chair. He was in his mid-50s, with gray hair and sharp green eyes that seemed to catch every twitch of my face. "It doesn't just sting, it rewrites everything you thought was real." I sat there, hands clasped tight, keeping my cool. "I didn't say anything about betrayal." "No, but you're laying out your wife's affair like you're troubleshooting a bad foundation," he said. "Most folks would be yelling, crying, or smashing something. You're calm as a blueprint." "Maybe that's how I'm wired," I told him. Tate leaned in, just a bit. "So what's the plan here? You building a bridge to patch things up, or are you rigging it for a clean demo?" I locked eyes with him. "Depends on how much weight it can hold." He scribbled something down. "And if it can't hold, you don't let it crash and burn everything nearby," I said. "You plan it, control it, take it down so only what's broken gets hit." We kept meeting every week. Tate was sharp, always listening, tossing out what he called tactical emotional framing. He didn't push me to confront Jessica or drag her to couples therapy. Instead, he got me thinking differently. "Revenge isn't about lashing out," he said in our third session. "It's about the evening score. They took something from you, your trust, your reality, your future. The real question is, do you deserve to set things right?" That stuck with me, and I started moving forward with the same precision I bring to my engineering projects. Step 1 was evidence. I gathered everything, camera footage, bank statements, text messages, that laid out the affair clear as day. Tyler, my protege, had been using company funds to wine and dine Jessica, billing their fancy dinners as client meetings and booking the firm's luxury SUV for their hotel romps. Step 2 was getting my legal ducks in a row. I met with 3 attorneys, using fake reasons to pick their brains about divorce laws, protecting my assets, and what happens when someone's caught committing fraud. Virginia's divorce laws don't care much about affairs, but financial misconduct? That's a whole different game. Step 3 was playing mind games. One night over dinner, I set my fork down and looked at Jessica, who was glued to her phone, replying to comments on her latest Rise and Thrive with Jess' post about building honest connections. "I've been thinking about us," I said. She glanced up, a flicker of annoyance crossing her face. "Oh? We've drifted a bit, haven't we? Maybe we should shake things up, try something new." Her eyes narrowed. "New how?" I picked my words like I was laying out a blueprint. "Some couples open things up, you know? Let each other explore other people. They say it can tighten the main bond." Her wineglass froze halfway to her lips. "You're saying you want to date other people?" "I'm saying maybe we should stop pretending everything's perfect and be real about what we want." Her smile lit up, too quick. "That's so forward-thinking, hun. I've read about couples who've made that work. It's all about emotional growth." "Thought you might like the idea," I said, leaning back. "I'm open to trying it." "Oh, I'm definitely intrigued," she said, her voice practically purring. That weekend, we marked our 18th anniversary at a swanky restaurant in downtown Baltimore, the same spot where I'd popped the question years ago. Jessica was in a sleek blue dress, wearing the sapphire necklace I'd given her for her birthday. She laughed at my stories, squeezed my hand across the table, and played the perfect wife like she was gunning for an Oscar. "This feels like a fresh start," she said over cheesecake. "I love how we're evolving together." I nodded and waved for the waiter to bring some champagne. "By the way, I've got some papers I need you to look at. Just some financial stuff my lawyer says we should update." "On our anniversary?" she asked, raising an eyebrow. Just a quick signature, nothing heavy, I said, pulling a leather folder from my briefcase. Standard stuff to protect our assets. The lawyer says couples should check this kind of thing every year. She skimmed the pages, thick with legal jargon about trusts, financial powers, and authorizations. This looks intense. All routine, I said, topping off her champagne. After 3 glasses, she was loose, trusting, signing her name with a flourish, stopping only to snap a selfie with the dessert and candles. Done, she said, sliding the folder back to me. What she didn't know was that those weren't just financial papers. They were powers of attorney, business agreements, and a post-nuptial clause that'd kick in if either of us was caught cheating or siphoning money. My lawyer had crossed every T. Happy anniversary, sweetheart, I said, raising my glass. The next step needed perfect timing. I started staying late at the office, double-checking my project files, making sure everything was backed up. I wanted my work airtight for what was coming. On a misty Tuesday night, I pulled my truck into the lot at Chesapeake Cove, a quiet marina just outside Annapolis, Maryland. The fog was thick, perfect for what I had planned. I kicked off my boots and flannel shirt, leaving them on a bench by the water's edge. I dunked my undershirt in the salty bay and draped it over the railing, like some poor sap had wandered into the tide. From my toolbox, I pulled a letter I'd written to Dr. Tate. Leonard, by the time you get this, I'll be long gone. The camera footage will back up what you already figured. 18 years of marriage reduced to a hotel receipt and my protege's hand on my wife's back. Some guys fight, some let it go. I'm taking a different road. The sea doesn't care who you are. It just swallows what you give it. Tell them I was done being the only one playing fair. I set the email to send automatically in 3 days, giving me a head start to vanish. Then I drove to the long-term parking at Baltimore-Washington Airport, hopped a late flight to Boise, Idaho, using papers I'd set up months ago. The passport belonged to Marcus Vale, a clean identity I'd created legally in Montana years back when I thought about starting fresh out west. Marcus had a solid credit score, a small bank account, and no ties to the mess I was leaving behind. From Boise, I rented a pickup and headed to a cabin I'd bought through a shell company in the hills near Missoula. It was off the grid, stocked with supplies, and had satellite Wi-Fi so I could keep tabs on things back home. The news of my disappearance hit on a Thursday morning. Annapolis police found my truck, clothes, and the soaked letter at the marina. The Coast Guard kicked off a search, dragging the bay for 5 days before calling it off due to storms and slim odds of finding me. From my cabin, I followed it all on news sites and social media. Jessica played her part like a pro. She posted on her Rise and Thrive with Jess blog, a tearjerker about being a heartbroken widow blindsided by her husband's secret struggles, vowing to honor me with charity work. Her post racked up 15,000 sympathetic comments. My soulmate is gone, and I can't imagine life without him. He was brilliant, caring, my rock. If you're fighting dark thoughts, please get help. My heart's in pieces, but his light will live on through the lives he touched. The photo showed her in black, clutching our wedding picture, tears streaking her perfectly made-up face. Tyler was just as convincing. The loyal protege, gutted by his mentor's loss, swore to keep my legacy alive at Carter Engineering. He gave a sob story to the Annapolis Herald, talking up my hidden pain and the need for mental health support in high-stress jobs. He was like family, Tyler said. I just wish he'd opened up before making that choice. Within days, he'd moved into my house to support Jessica through her grief. The firm's transition went smoothly. Tyler took the wheel while the courts sorted out my estate. From my mountain hideout, I kicked off Phase 4, the takedown. I started by dropping anonymous tips to the IRS about shady dealings at Carter Engineering. The book showed fishy charges, client dinners that lined up perfectly with Tyler and Jessica's hotel dates, business trips to places with no clients, and gear purchases that never existed. Next, I reached out to a freelance reporter, Emily Chen, who dug into influencer scams. Using a burner email, I sent her records showing how Jessica had been faking her blog's success, phony brand deals, staged content funded by secret loans, and cash siphoned from my company to prop up her image. Emily's article, Rise and Thrive with Jess, The Influencer's House of Cards, hit the Mid-Atlantic Times 2 weeks after I vanished. It laid out how Jessica claimed 6-figure sponsorships that were pure fiction, racked up debt to fake her perfect life, and possibly used my business accounts to keep the charade going. The fallout was brutal. Brands dropped her like a hot coal. Her followers turned, flooding her comment sections with accusations, picking apart old posts for lies. Jessica posted a weepy video, denying everything and threatening to sue anyone, using my pain for clout. But the damage was a wildfire she couldn't put out. Tyler wasn't faring any better. I'd planted evidence hinting he'd been playing fast and loose with insider info, using city contract details to pad his personal investments. The SEC opened a probe, locking down his accounts and tying his hands at the firm. From my cabin, I watched their world crumble with the same focus I used to bring to my engineering projects. Every weak point was calculated, every collapse deliberate. The plan was unfolding like a well-drafted blueprint, but I wasn't done yet. Dr. Tate got my delayed email on a Monday morning. He read it over a couple of times before passing it to the Annapolis cops. By then, though, the dominoes were already falling. That reporter, Emily Chen, had kept digging into Jessica's finances and hit pay dirt. She found that Jessica's splurges, fancy dresses, high-end jewelry, slick photo shoots, lined up perfectly with Tyler's business trips charged to Carter Engineering. Even juicier, Emily uncovered social media posts from other bloggers showing Jessica at glitzy events in places like Miami and Las Vegas, when she'd claimed to be off on unplugged wellness retreats. The woman was living a double life. Emily's follow-up piece laid it all bare. While preaching a life of mindful authenticity, Jessica Carter was neck-deep in what looks like calculated fraud and maybe even infidelity. The article had receipts, photos of Jessica and Tyler together at hotels and rooftop bars, time-stamped and geotagged to blow holes in their stories and alibis. Jessica's last sponsors bailed. Her Rise and Thrive with Jess blog, once a shrine to perfect living, turned into a war zone of comments, from diehard fans to outright trolls. Someone spun up a parody account, Thrive on Lies with Jess, that racked up 60,000 followers in days. Tyler's world was crumbling faster. The SEC probe uncovered shady stock trades going back months before I disappeared. Worse, accountants found proof he'd been skimming client funds through fake invoices and padded expenses. When the feds rolled into Carter Engineering with search warrants, they found a treasure trove of evidence, files, emails, bank records, all neatly organized, like someone wanted it found. Tyler got hauled out of the office in cuffs on a Wednesday morning, news cameras catching every second. The charges? Embezzlement, securities fraud, wire fraud, money laundering. From my cabin in the Missoula Hills, I watched his perp walk on a local news site. Tyler looked smaller, his cocky grin replaced by a deer-in-headlights stare. That night, my satellite phone buzzed. Jessica's number popped up. "I know you're out there," she said, her voice raw and frantic. "I know you're watching this." I stayed quiet. "Please," she begged. "I can explain. It wasn't what you think. Tyler tricked me, said you didn't care about me anymore, that you were going to walk out anyway." I didn't say a word. "I never wanted this," she went on. "I love you, always have. Whatever you see, whatever you think you know, we can fix it. Start fresh." I hung up without a sound. 2 days later, Jessica posted her final blog video. It was just her, no makeup, in a plain hoodie, sitting in our sleek Annapolis kitchen. "I owe you all the truth," she whispered, barely holding it together. "Everything they're saying about me is real. I've been faking it for months. I betrayed the man who mattered most to me, and I've been lying to all of you." She paused, swallowing hard. "He was a good man, a loyal husband. He deserved better than me. If he's really gone, it's on me. All of it." The video was cut off. Within hours, it was screenshotted and shared everywhere, pulling millions of views and comments, from "I knew it" to "I feel for her." I wasn't watching anymore. It was time for the last piece of the plan. Tyler made bail after a week in lockup. His lawyer, a sharp woman from Baltimore who handled white-collar cases, got him out using his aunt's house as collateral. But he didn't head to his aunt's. Instead, he drove to Chesapeake Cove, where I'd staged my exit. A security camera caught him sneaking onto a 42-foot yacht owned by a former client who was off in Italy for months. Tyler holed up there for 3 days, making desperate calls to shady contacts who could get him fake papers. His passport was gone, but he knew people who dealt in backdoor IDs. On the third night, I paid him a visit. He was on the yacht's deck, puffing a cigarette, staring at the dark water when my boots hit the dock. He spun around, and his cigarette hit the deck. I looked different, leaner, rougher, in dark clothes that melted into the night. But my eyes, he knew those. "Hey, Tyler," I said, low and steady. "Jesus, you're supposed to be dead," he stammered. "Sorry to disappoint." "No, I'm glad," he said too fast. "Look, I can explain. Jessica, she—" "What? Dragged you into it? Forced you to steal from my company? Fleece my clients?" His face went red. "It wasn't like that. Then what was it? I stepped closer. He ran a hand through his hair, antsy. You don't know what it's like. Always in your shadow, always the apprentice. You had it all. The perfect marriage, the big house, the dream life. So you took it, I said. I loved her, he shot back. She was lonely, man. You were always at the office, buried in blueprints. She needed someone who actually saw her. In the dim marina lights, my face felt like steel. And the stealing? That was love too? I needed cash to keep up with you, he admitted. She liked nice things. I was just borrowing it, temporarily. The plan was still rolling, but there was one last piece to set in place. I faced Tyler on that yacht, and his excuses were as flimsy as I'd expected. I was going to pay it all back once the firm was mine, he said, his voice shaky. I gave him a cold smile. You mean after I was out of the picture? His eyes went wide. I didn't want you dead, man. That was your call. Was it? Or were you banking on me being too soft to hit back, too decent to tear you both down after what you did to me? Please, he begged. We can fix this. I'll give you everything. The money, the company, Jessica. Without thinking, I slapped him hard across the face, the sound cracking through the night. He stumbled back, nearly tumbling over the yacht's rail. Don't, I said, my voice low and sharp. Say her name again. Tyler rubbed his cheek, wincing. What do you want from me? I want you to get this, I said, stepping closer. Every bit of this. The SEC, the arrest, the evidence. It was all me. I built the case against you like I design a bridge. You didn't set me up. You just showed who you really are. I just made it visible. His hand inched toward his jacket, but I was quicker, grabbing his wrist and twisting until a small knife clattered to the deck. Seriously? I said. You thought that was your way out? I kicked the blade aside and yanked him closer. In the moonlight, I didn't feel like the mentor he'd known for 5 years. Here's the deal, I told him. You'll do your time, every second of it. When you're out, you vanish. New city, new name, new life. If I ever hear you've reached out to anyone from our past, or if you breathe my name or Jessica's, I'll end this for good. No fake suicide, just a sad story about a crook who drowned trying to skip town. He nodded fast, panicked. I get it. No, you don't, I said, but you will. I walked off the dock, leaving him alone with the weight of what he'd done. Jessica had holed up at my old cabin, a place my dad left me near Deep Creek Lake, a couple of hours from Annapolis. It was tucked away in the woods, reachable only by a winding gravel path. She'd been there a week when I showed up. The cabin hadn't changed. Log walls, a stone hearth, windows facing the still lake. Jessica had settled in, lighting fires at night and cooking from the canned goods I'd stashed in the pantry. She was on the porch when my truck's headlights cut through the darkness. For a second, she looked like she might bolt, but a tree had fallen across the driveway that morning, blocking her car. I climbed the steps slowly, hands out, empty. I wasn't the guy who'd built her dream kitchen or brought her favorite daisies anymore. I was sharper, colder, someone new. Hey, Jessica, I said. She stood, smoothing her jeans and plain sweater, no makeup or jewelry, looking more like the girl I'd married 20 years ago. I figured you'd show up eventually, she said, her voice steady but thin. Did you? Tyler told me before they locked him up, said you planned it all, that you'd been watching us for months. I sat in the creaky chair across from her. Does it matter now? I want to know why you didn't just call us out, she said. Why not just divorce me? I leaned forward. Would you have stopped? She stared out at the lake, the silence heavy. No, she admitted. Not right away. I'd have lied, blamed you, made excuses. I'd have fought for my share and tried to ruin your name in the process. And Tyler? He'd have convinced me we were meant to be, that you were the problem. She gave a bitter laugh. He was good at selling me dreams that weren't real. I studied her in the dim porch light. Did you love him? I thought I did, she said, but love shouldn't turn you into someone you don't know. It shouldn't mean hurting others to feel alive. What did you think would happen? I asked. That I'd never notice. She went quiet, then said, I thought you'd stop caring. We'd been drifting for years. You were always at the office, buried in your work. I felt like a ghost in my own life. So you made yourself seen by someone else. Yeah, she said, voice cracking. And I lost myself doing it. I leaned back. Tell me about the money. What money? The designer clothes, the fake sponsorships, the whole perfect life act. That wasn't just about the affair. Her cheeks reddened. I was trying to keep up with the other bloggers. Everyone seemed richer, happier. I started fudging things. Fake receipts, pumped up numbers. It was small at first, but the lies grew. Tyler said he could make it real, that he knew people who could land me legit deals. And you bought it? I wanted to, she said. That's not the same thing. I stood and walked to the porch rail, the lake stretching out, stars glinting on the water. What now? She asked, her voice small. That's up to you, I said, turning to face her. I could hand you over. I've got proof of your fraud, your affair, your role in the company's mess. I could make sure you lose everything, maybe even do time. She nodded, eyes down. I know. Or, I said, I could let you walk. New name, new life, somewhere far from here. Why would you do that? Because for 18 years you were my wife. I loved you, even if you forgot how to be that person. Tears spilled down her face and she didn't wipe them away. Jessica's tears weren't the polished kind she'd mastered for her blog. They were raw, messy sobs that shook her whole frame. I'm so sorry, she gasped, barely getting the words out. I know it's too late, but I never stopped loving you. I got lost somewhere. I stood there watching her fall apart, but I didn't move to comfort her. Sorry doesn't fix what's broken, I said. It doesn't put the trust back. I know, she whispered, but it's something. I pulled a manila envelope from my coat and set it on the table between us. New ID, clean credit, enough cash to start fresh if you were smart about it. She stared at the envelope, hands trembling. What's the catch? You vanish, I said. No reaching out to anyone from your old life. No social media. No trying to cash in on this mess. You become someone else and stay that way. And if I don't? Then I turn you in. You'll spend the next 5 to 10 years in federal prison for fraud and embezzlement. She picked up the envelope, peeking inside at documents for a woman named Rachel Harper. Driver's license, social security card, birth certificate, passport, plus a bank account number. Who's Rachel Harper? She asked. Someone who gets a do-over, I said. Don't screw it up. I started down the porch steps toward my truck, then stopped and glanced back. Oh, and that tree blocking the driveway? It'll be gone by morning. Pack light. Jessica watched my taillights fade into the woods. She went inside, sorting through the scraps of her old life, deciding what to keep and what to burn. 3 months later, I was sitting in a small cafe in Florence, Italy, as Marcus Vale, scrolling through news from back home on my tablet. Tyler Brooks had copped a plea, getting 8 years in federal lockup after admitting to a slew of charges. His lawyer worked a deal for him to pay back the clients he'd ripped off. Jessica Carter was a ghost. The FBI had a warrant out for her, but she'd disappeared without a trace. Some folks figured she'd ended it all out of guilt. Others thought she'd slipped off to some country that didn't send people back. Me? I'd been declared legally dead 6 months after I vanished. My estate got split up per my will. Most of it went to scholarships for engineering students and wildlife charities, with a few bucks left to cousins who never saw it coming. Dr. Leonard Tate up and retired right after my suicide letter went public. He'd moved to a quiet practice in Maine, focusing on folks dealing with loss and trauma. As Marcus Vale, I'd settled into a low-key life in Florence, picking up consulting gigs on local bridge projects. I'd learned enough Italian to get by, though most of my work was in English. I was sipping an espresso when someone slid into the chair across from me. Marcus Vale, right? I looked up and saw Dr. Tate, looking older, a bit worn, but those sharp green eyes hadn't changed. Sorry, I said, keeping my tone even. Do I know you? He smirked. Oh, we go way back, Carter. My hand eased toward my jacket where I kept a slim folding knife that wouldn't ping a metal detector. Think you've got the wrong guy. No mistake, he said. You pulled it off like a pro. The fake exit, the evidence, the way you took down everyone who crossed you. Clean, precise, like one of your blueprints. I don't know what you're talking about, I said, eyes locked on him. He leaned back. Sure you do. Just like you knew what you were doing when you came to me for therapy. Looking for a sounding board, maybe? A little expert insight on the psychology of payback? I didn't blink. What do you want, Tate? To say thanks, he said. I froze. Thanks? He nodded, his smile thin. Tyler Brooks was my kid. The words hit like a sledgehammer, but I kept my face blank, years of engineering discipline kicking in. Your kid? Adopted, he clarified. Took him in when he was 16. A messed up kid from a rough home. Smart, driven, but no moral compass. My hand stayed near the knife. And you're telling me why? Because I watched him wreck everything for years, Tate said. Relationships, deals, his own future. He was a leech, sucking up opportunities and leaving chaos. So you used me to take him out. His smile didn't waver. I gave you support during a tough time. Whatever you did after that was your call. You nudged me toward revenge, I said. Called it tactical emotional framing or whatever. I helped you find clarity, he corrected. Your actions brought justice to those who hurt you. That's on you. Your own son, I said, voice low. My biggest regret, he said quietly. I tried everything. Counseling, structure, chances. Nothing stuck. Tate's words stuck with me like a splinter. Tyler was broken, he said, his voice calm but heavy. A leech who'd keep wrecking lives until someone put a stop to it. So you set me up to do it, I said, feeling the cafe's walls press in. I helped you find your strength, he corrected. You could have forgiven them, tried to patch things up, or just let it slide. You chose to make things right. What do you want from me now? I asked, my voice flat. Nothing, he said. Just here to say thanks. Tyler's where he belongs. Jessica's learned her lesson, and you've seen who you really are when the mask comes off. And who's that? His green eyes glinted. A guy who gets that, sometimes you gotta tear it all down to fix things. Someone who'll do what's needed when the system fails. I stood up slowly. This talk's done. Is it? He said, leaning back. I've got an offer for you. I froze despite myself. What kind of offer? There's others like Tyler out there. People who lie, steal, betray, and hide behind cash or connections. And there's folks like you, good people pushed too far, who need justice but don't know how to get it. It hit me what he was saying. You want me to play vigilante for hire? I'm saying your skills, your planning, your precision, your follow-through could help others in the same boat. For justice, maybe some money too. They don't have to be separate. I glanced around the Florence Cafe, at folks sipping coffee, reading papers, living normal lives, clueless that two guys were talking about dismantling lives over pastries. I'll think about it, I said finally. Tate nodded, slid a business card across the table with just a phone number, and left without a backward glance. That night I wandered the old cobblestone streets of Florence, past ancient churches and tourist traps, the Arno River reflecting lights from bridges and bars. I kept thinking about Tate's offer, about the cold thrill I'd felt watching Tyler and Jessica's worlds collapse, about the man I'd turned into while plotting it all. The old me was a decent guy, loyal, hardworking, trusting. I'd built a solid firm, kept a marriage going for 18 years, treated everyone fair. But that guy was blind. Marcus Vale, though. He was tougher, saw people for what they were, some of them sharks who'd take everything and still want more. He knew the only way to handle betrayal was to hit back harder, smarter, than they ever expected. But Marcus was also empty in a way the old me never was. The rush of getting even faded fast, leaving a hollow spot where my old life used to be. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. A guy in Seattle needs help. Wife and business partner pulling a scam. Interested? I stared at it for a long time, then deleted it without replying. But I kept Tate's card. 2 weeks later, I was eating at a little spot by the river when a news report flickered on the TV above the bar. Tyler Brooks's face filled the screen, gaunt and pale, being led from a prison van to a courthouse. The sound was low, but the ticker said it all. He'd been shanked in federal lockup, survived, but lost most of the use of his right hand. They were moving him to a low-security spot to finish his sentence. I watched him fumble with his cuffs, feeling nothing. No victory, no guilt, just a blank space. The next story was about a startup founder in Seattle who'd taken his own life after getting caught in a web of fraud and workplace misconduct. He left behind a wife and 3 kids, now facing grief and financial ruin. I turned back to my plate, but the story stuck with me. How many people get crushed because someone like Tyler decides to take what's not theirs? How many families pay the price for trusting the wrong person? My phone buzzed again. The Seattle case closed itself. Now a guy in Tucson is facing betrayal. Wife and partner siphoning funds. 2 kids caught in the mess. Interested? I read the message 3 times, thinking about those kids growing up with nothing because their dad trusted the wrong people. I pictured a man in Arizona, learning his life was a lie. Finally, I typed back, sending details. Within an hour, the file came through. David Kessler, a 42-year-old contractor in Tucson, had caught his wife and business partner skimming money from his company, planning to clean him out and start over together in Brazil. He'd talked to a lawyer, but the legal route would drag on for years, and by then, the thieves would be long gone with the cash. I pored over the documents, bank records, emails, travel plans, photos. It was like looking at my own story all over again. The story in Tucson was like looking in a mirror. Another good guy, David Kessler, getting bled dry by the people he trusted most. But this one had a twist. David had reached out to Dr. Tate before he hit rock bottom. Instead of letting him spiral, Tate pointed him toward a different path. I shut my laptop and stepped onto the tiny balcony of my Florence apartment. The city sprawled below, a mix of old stone towers and modern storefronts, a place that had outlasted empires, wars, and time itself. Everything could be rebuilt, buildings, businesses, even lives. But some things, like trust or the ability to love without holding back, were gone for good once they broke. The guy I was before that GPS tracker showed up in my truck, he was ashes now, burned up in the collapse of my old life. But maybe Marcus Vale could do more than just keep breathing. I grabbed my phone and dialed the number on Tate's card. "I'm in," I said when he picked up. "But I've got rules." "Go on," he said. "No killing, no permanent harm, and the innocent, kids, families, stay untouched." "Fair enough. Anything else?" "I work solo. No check-ins during jobs. Payment only when it's done." "Deal. When can you head to Tucson?" I glanced out at the Arno River, its dark water catching the city's lights. In a few hours, I could be on a plane back to the States, where the old me died and Marcus Vale took over. "Tomorrow," I said. The Tucson job took 6 weeks to pull off. David's business partner, Nathan Holt, was sneakier than Tyler, but just as greedy. He and David's wife, Karen, had been at it for 2 years, siphoning cash from the contracting firm while planning their getaway. I tackled it like I always did. Evidence first, bank records, security footage, voice recordings, then the legal side, figuring out fraud laws, evidence standards, and how to make it stick. Finally, the head games, timing the fallout to hit hard and leave no escape. Nathan walked into the office one morning to find FBI agents waiting with warrants. Karen was out buying decor for their secret condo in Brazil when she found her accounts frozen and her cards useless. I'd made sure the evidence was airtight, laid out like a project proposal. Nathan got 12 years for embezzlement and money laundering. Karen got 5 for conspiracy and fraud. David kept his company, his kids, and most of his savings. Most importantly, he kept his life, which was Tate's main worry when David first reached out. I pocketed my fee, $200,000 wired to an account in the Bahamas, and headed back to Florence. But I didn't stay long. Within a month, Tate sent me files on a case in Portland, then one in Austin, then Tampa. Each was different, but the pattern held. Good people betrayed by those closest to them, facing ruin while the culprits planned to skate free. I'd spend weeks studying, months setting the trap, and days watching it snap shut, just like I'd planned. I got good at it. Over 18 months, I took down 23 leeches who thrived on betrayal, and I pulled 11 clients back from the edge of giving up, all people Tate had sent my way. The work paid well, over $3 million stashed offshore, but it gave me something my old engineering gigs never did: purpose. I wasn't just building bridges anymore, I was building justice. But it was lonely. Marcus Vale lived alone, worked alone, and trusted nobody except the voice on those encrypted calls. That changed in Budapest. The target was a hedge fund guy, Richard Vance, who'd been fleecing retirees while his wife ran insider trading schemes through dummy companies. The client was Vance's old partner, whose mom had lost her savings to their con. I was staking out at a cafe near Vance's hotel when a woman sat across from me. She was in her 30s with dark hair and sharp hazel eyes, dressed in a plain gray coat that was somehow both stylish and forgettable. "You're not here for the sights," she said, her English carrying a slight accent. "Neither are you," I shot back. She smiled. "I'm Sophia, and you're the guy tailing Richard Vance." My hand edged toward my jacket where I kept my folding knife, but she raised her hands empty. "I'm not here to get in your way," she said. "I want to help." "Help with what?" "Vance tanked my family's business in Romania 5 years ago. We've been tracking him ever since, waiting for the right moment." I studied her, looking for any sign of a lie. "What kind of moment?" "The kind that makes sure he never hurts anyone again." We talked for 3 hours. Sophia Moran was a former lawyer who'd turned to private investigating after Vance's scams bought off the officials who should have nailed him. She'd been chasing his trail across Europe, cataloging crimes that would never see a courtroom. "He's untouchable legally," she said. "Too much cash, too many friends in high places." "But guys like him have weak spots," I said. "Arrogance, greed, thinking they're untouchable. She nodded, and I saw something in her eyes I hadn't felt in myself for a long time. A spark of purpose beyond just surviving. "What's your pitch?" I asked. "We team up," she said. "I handle Europe, you take the States. We pool intel, resources, risks, and the wins." We worked the Vance job together. Sophia's contacts in Romanian law enforcement dug up dirt on his old scams, while my approach made sure his current cons were documented in a way no one could ignore. Vance got arrested in Budapest and shipped back to the States, facing charges that'd keep him locked up for life. Sophia's arrest in London happened at the same time, caught trying to funnel stolen cash to accounts in Bermuda. That job was my biggest win yet, but what hit harder was working with Sophia. Going it alone had felt like strength, but she showed me it was just another kind of cage. We teamed up again 6 months later in Prague, then Munich, then Lisbon. Each case brought new hurdles, new victories. Sophia's European network paired with my stateside know-how opened doors neither of us could have cracked solo. Somewhere between Budapest and Madrid, I realized I was falling for her. Love was risky in our line of work. It meant trusting someone, and trust left you open to getting burned. But Sophia knew the stakes better than anyone, and still chose to roll the dice. "We could walk away," she said one night as we strolled along the Tagus River. "We've got enough cash to vanish for good. New names, quiet lives, no more jobs." "Is that what you want?" I asked. "I want a life where we don't end up breaking each other," she said. I chewed on that for weeks. Marcus Vale and Sophia Marine could fade into the sunset, just bank accounts and fake IDs. We could buy a place somewhere sunny, maybe start a legit consulting gig that didn't involve tearing lives apart. But then Tate would call with another case, another client staring down the barrel of despair, another predator about to slip away scot-free. "One last job," I told her finally. "Something big enough to matter." She grinned. "Knew you'd say that." The final job took us back to the States, tackling a beast bigger than anything I'd touched before. A biotech exec, Gregory Holt, was rigging clinical trials, bribing doctors, and jacking up prices on critical drugs while his wife and cousins siphoned money through fake nonprofits. The client, Dr. Emily Lynn, was Holt's former lab chief, who'd been framed for stealing data and blacklisted after trying to blow the whistle. She'd reached out to Tate after her third brush with giving up. "This isn't just betrayal," Sophia said, flipping through the files. "They're profiting off people's lives." I nodded. Holt's schemes were massive. Hundreds died because they couldn't afford drugs that cost pennies to make, but sold for thousands. Thousands more got worthless treatments based on faked data. "The proof's out there," I said, "but it's buried in dummy corporations, offshore accounts, encrypted emails. Or we make them trip over their own lies," Sophia said. We crafted a plan, pulling from every trick we'd learned: financial pressure, legal traps, mind games, and perfect timing to trigger a total collapse. It started with anonymous tips to the FDA about holes in Holt's trial data. As feds dug into lab records, Sophia and I leaked documents exposing the money trail. But Holt wasn't like our other marks. He had buddies in high places, cops, politicians, and enough cash to hire private muscle. When he caught wind of the investigation, he pushed back hard. Sophia got grabbed outside her hotel in Denver. The guys who took her weren't pros, just hired thugs meant to scare her, but they didn't count on her skills or my reaction. I tracked her down in 12 hours to an empty warehouse on the city's outskirts. She'd slipped her restraints but was pinned in by armed goons. I hadn't used my old army training in years, not since I'd traded combat boots for blueprints, but it came back fast. I took out the guards quietly, no fuss. Sophia was banged up but breathing, and madder than hell. "Holt made this personal," she said as I patched her wrists. "Now we end him right." The final push was a media storm, hitting every angle of Holt's crimes at once: rigged trials, price gouging, bribes, fraud, and money laundering. We fed charges to prosecutors across multiple states, making it impossible for Holt's lawyers to spin or plead their way out. His biotech firm tanked in a week, stock worthless, execs in cuffs, assets locked pending trials. Holt got arrested at his Napa Valley mansion, caught shredding files. Dr. Lynn was cleared, her research went public, and patients who'd been screwed over finally got justice. The case sparked new laws protecting whistleblowers and shook up the industry. But it cost us more than we'd bargained for. That warehouse in Denver was a wake-up call. Our work wasn't just numbers and plans, it was dangerous, dealing with people who'd do anything to save their own skin. "This is it," I told Sophia, as we watched news of Gregory Holt's arrest from our hotel room. She nodded, eyes on the screen. "Yeah, I know." We'd gathered enough dirt to take down dozens more like him, but we'd also made enemies who wouldn't hesitate to come after us. It was time to get out for good. Dr. Tate called one last time as we packed to leave the States for good. The Holt job was something else, he said. You saved countless lives. We're done, I said, my voice firm. Both of us. Don't call again. I get it, he said, but you built something real, a way to make things right when the system fails. Find someone else to keep it going, I told him. Maybe I will, he said. But you and Sophia? You found something rare in this game. Revenge leaves you empty, but justice you share? That's the purpose. I hung up and smashed the phone. Sophia and I caught a flight to Tasmania, where Marcus Vale and Sophia Marine would vanish for good. 5 years later, we were James and Sophia Carter, running a small orchard outside Hobart. We grew apples, made cider that won local awards, and lived quietly among folks who didn't know our past. The years had been kind to me. The constant looking over my shoulder was gone, replaced by the calm of building something instead of tearing it down. Sophia had learned to laugh without scanning for threats, to trust neighbors without digging into their histories. We still checked U.S. news now and then. Tyler Brooks got out of prison and was working construction in Idaho, living in a modest apartment, steering clear of Jessica. Jessica, now Rachel Harper, had opened a tiny coffee shop in Maine and seemed to have found peace in her new, quiet life. Dr. Tate had quit for good, settling in a cabin in Wyoming, writing a memoir he'd never publish. Gregory Holt died in federal lockup after 2 years of legal fights. His biotech firm's assets were sold off to compensate victims, and new laws stopped others from pulling the same stunts. The work Sophia and I started carried on through others, but the need for our particular brand of justice had faded. One warm fall evening, as we sat on our porch watching the sunset turn the orchard orange, Sophia asked the question we'd both been avoiding. Do you ever regret any of it? I thought hard before answering. I regret that it had to happen, I said. I hate that people like Tyler and Holt were out there, wrecking lives. But stopping them? No regrets, even with the cost. The old me had to die to make it happen. Maybe that's just what justice demands. You give up who you were to become who the fight needs. She took my hand. And who are you now? I looked out at the trees we'd planted, the life we'd carved out from nothing but grit and a shared goal. I'm a guy who learned to save yourself by saving others, I said. And sometimes peace comes from making sure the right people face the music. The sun dipped below the hills and I went inside to help Sophia fix dinner, living the quiet life we'd earned through ways nobody would ever know.